Hi everybody, welcome to Live Blogger. In this tutorial series, we are building this job board application using Nextjs. In the previous video, we designed the hero section of our website. Now in this video, we will design this post a job form. So here you can see if I click on this link, we have this form displayed over here. We have the heading, subheading, and then we have this job posting form. And then we have this button over here. And this is basically a new page. So we're going to create this page and we're going to create this form component. And we're going to use ShadCN for creating this form component. So let's get started. So you can just go to the ShadCN official website, ui.shadcn.com, and go to docs. And here we can just click on forms. And we're going to use React hook form. So let's click on this. And this is the documentation of creating a form. So let's go back to our VS Code and let's install some dependencies. So first of all, we need to add the field component from ShadCN. So let's go ahead and type npx ShadCN at latest add field. And let's also add the other components that we need. For example, we need the input field, we need the select field, and also the text area and the button. So let's also install these. So I'll just type npx ShadCN at latest add input, select, text area. We'll also use the card and button and input group. So let's press enter. If we go back to the documentation, we can see that we also need to install Zod for the validation. So here we can see that Zod is being used for the validation. So let's also install that. And we also need to install React hook form. So let's install both of these. Let's go back over here, and button already exists. So I'll just press no. Right now, let's go ahead and let's type npm I, and let's type at hook form resolvers and React hook form and also Zod. And let's press enter. But now that we have installed everything, let's go ahead and start with creating the schema. So let's go to the lib folder. Let's create a new file called validators.ts. And here, let's go ahead and first of all, import Zod. So let's type import asterisk as z from Zod. And let's create a schema. So let's type export const job form schema. And we need to set it equal to z.object. And here we need to provide the shape of the object. So we need to have the title. So here we can see we have the title, company name, and all these things over here. So we need to add all of these inside the schema. So for the title, we need to set it to z.string. It should be a string, and it should have a minimum value of 3. So it should be at least 3 characters long. And here for the error message, let's type title must be at least 3 characters. And then for the company, let's go ahead and type z.string, and it should be minimum 2 characters. And let's add an error message over here. Or the next thing we need to have is the job type. So let's type job type, and it should be z.enum. So we will have some set values over here. So we'll just type full time for one of the values, and the second value should be part time. And this all should be inside an array. So let's add all of this inside an array. And then we need to have contract and also internship. So these are the options that we need to have inside job type. Then we have location, and for the location, we need to have a z.string, and it should be a minimum value of 2. And let's type location is required. And let's go ahead and type experience level, and it should also be a z.enum. And we should have the following values. We need to have entry level, then we need to have mid level, and then we need to have senior and also manager. Right now we need to have the salary, and for the salary, we need to set it to z.string, and it should be optional. So let's type optional over here. And then we need to have the description. So the description should be string, and the minimum value should be at least 50 characters. So let's type description must be at least 50 characters. And then lastly, we have application URL. So let's type z.string. It should also be a string, and it should be a URL. So let's type URL. And if it is not a valid URL, you just type must be a valid URL. So this is basically our job form schema, and we can use this in our form. Let's also export the job form values from here so that we can use it directly inside the form. So here we can see, if we scroll down to the form, so let's go to build the form. Here we can see that we are typing z.infer type of form schema. So let's go ahead and export this from our validator itself. So let's go ahead and type export type job form values equals z.infer type of job form schema. So now we can directly use this job form values to validate all the inputs. Right now, let's go ahead and create a new page. So let's go over here to the app folder and let's create a new folder called post job. And in that, we'll have a file called page.tsx. Now here, let's go ahead and tap export default function post job page, and let's type return post job. So now if you go to the post job URL, so let's type post job. Here we can see that we have this sign in prompt because post a job page is protected. So let's log in. Right, so here we can see that I have logged in and we have the post job page displayed over here. Now let's go to the components folder and let's create a new component for the form. So let's go ahead and go to features. Let's create a new folder called job. And in that, let's tap post job form.tsx. And let's go ahead and tap export default function. Let's tap post job form. And let's return the form. Let's tap hi for now. And let's use this post job form inside here. So let's tap post job form. If you go back to our website, here we can see hi is being displayed over here. But now let's go back to the documentation and let's copy some code from here so that it's easy for us. First of all, let's use a card component for the form. So let's go to the post job form and here, let's add all of this inside a card. And we need to import card from UI card. Now in the card, we need to have a card content. And in that, we will have the form. Below the card content, we will have the card footer. And in this, we will have the buttons. So let's go back to our documentation and let's copy some code from here. So let's copy this form. And let's paste it right here. And we need to import all of these. So let's go back over here and let's import the necessary elements. So we need to have the input group input, and we need to also have the field and also the card. So let's copy all of these and let's paste it right here. And let's see what else we have. So we need to import the controller. So the controller is basically from React hook form. So let's copy this and let's paste it over here. Right, the next thing we need to do is create this form constant. So if you go back to the documentation, here we can see that they are creating this const called form, and that we are using use form, which comes from React hook form. And it makes it easy for us to manage forms. So here we can see that we are validating the input using the form schema. So let's go ahead and copy this code from here and let's paste it right here just before the return. And here, instead of form schema, we have already created the job form values instead of zInfer. So if we go back to validator, here we can see we are exporting job form values. So let's use that. So I'll just go ahead and delete all of this and we will use the type that we exported. And here itself, we are using zInfer. So let's go back and here let's type job form values. And then we also need to import zodResolver. So let's click on quick fix and let's import it from hook form resolver zod. And let's type job form schema over here. We are importing that as well from validators. Right, now the next thing we need to fix is this on submit. So we need to create a function called on submit. So let's do that. Let's type function on submit and we get some data. And for the data, we'll check whether the values are the same as job form values. So here let's type job form values. And here I'll just go ahead and console.log the data. So I'll just type data over here, and let's type data. So this will display the data that we submit to the console. Later we'll go ahead and write the code to insert this to the database. And now we can see that we don't have any errors. Now we also need to change this into a client component. So let's type use client. So now let's go back to our website, and this is how it looks. So we have these two input fields. Right now let's go back to the page, and here let's add a container so that we have some max width. Let's import it from components UI container. And now we can see we have this max width. Let's type class name, and I'll just change the max width a little bit. I'll just type max W of 4 XL. But this looks all right. And let's also add a heading. Let's type div, and here let's type class name, margin bottom of 8. And in this div, let's go ahead and create an H1. Let's type post a new job, and let's add some classes. Let's type text 3XL for the size and margin bottom of 3. Let's also create a paragraph. Let's copy this from here and let's paste it right here. And let's add some classes. Let's type text size to LG, text color to muted foreground. Let's also type font semi-bold. Let's also add a margin top. So here let's type empty of 12. Well, now let's go ahead and add these form fields to our form. So let's go to the form component. And first of all, let's add the default values. So I'll just go ahead and copy this from here. So these are the things that we need in our form. And let's paste them over here. And let's add the default values. So I'll just type empty string for all of these. And for job type, let's select full-time by default. And for locations, let's type empty string. And experience level, let's type senior by default. And for salary, let's type empty string. And for the description also, let's type empty string. And for the application URL, also let's type empty string. So in this way, we have added the default values. Now let's scroll down, and here we have the form elements. So first of all, let's change the form ID name, and let's change this to post job form. And here in the form footer, let's also add the buttons. So let's go back to the documentation. I'll just copy these buttons from here and let's paste it over here. Instead of submit, let's type publish job, and let's import button from UI button. And here also we need to have the same form name. So let's type post job form. But now let's update these input fields. So first of all, we need to have the job title. So I'll just keep the name as title. And here for the field label, let's type job title. And for the ID of the title, let's type job title. Let's update that over here as well, job title. And for the placeholder, let's type example, senior front-end engineer. And I'll just remove autocomplete from here. But now the next thing is the company. So I'll just copy this controller. Let's paste it down here. And here for the title, let's type company. And here for the HTML4, let's type company. Just the company name over here. And here also, let's type company name. And for the ID, let's type company name. And for the placeholder, let's type example tech corp or something like that. Now let's copy and paste this controller once more. And for this one, we need to have the job type and also the experience level. So we need to have both of these side by side. So I'll just add this inside a div. I'll just cut this ending div and paste it down here. So this one is gonna be the job type. And here for the field label, I'll just remove this, and here let's type job type. And here instead of the input field, we need to have the select component. So let's delete this and let's type select. Let's import it from components UI select. And in the select, we need to have a select trigger and also select content. So let's type select trigger. Let's import it from components UI select. Let's open the documentation of select and let's see how it works. So let's search for select over here. And here, if you scroll down, this is how the select works. And the select trigger, we need to have a select value and we need to have a placeholder. So let's copy this and let's paste it over here. Let's import it from components UI select. Here, let's type select job type. And for the select, let's go ahead and type on value change. Let's go ahead and type field dot on change. So this will update the value according to the selected element from the drop down. And let's also add a default value. Let's set the default value to field dot value. But now we need to have the select content. So below the select trigger, let's go ahead and type select content. Let's import it from components UI select. And here we need to have select item. Let's import it from components UI select. And in this, we need to have the value. Let's set the value to full time. And here also, let's tap full time. So now if you go back here, we can see that we have full time over here. So let's add the other values as well. So let's copy this and paste it down here 3 more times. Here, let's change this to part-time. And here also change this to part-time. Here, let's type contract. And here also, let's type contract. And then we have internship. Here also, let's type internship. But now we can see that we have all these values selected over here. And by default, we have full time because we are adding that over here as the default value. And for this div, we'll just go ahead and add some classes. Let's type class name. Let's type display of grid, gap of 6. For medium or larger, let's type grid calls to 2 so that these elements are one next to the other. Right now, let's copy the same thing. So let's copy this controller and let's paste it down here. And for the second controller, we need to change this to the experience level. So let's type experience level over here. And here for the field label, let's go ahead and type experience level. And here for the select value placeholder, let's change this to select experience level. And then we need to have the select content. So let's change these values. I'll just type entry level for the first one. Let's do that over here as well. Let's type entry level. Then we have mid-level, senior, and manager. So let's type mid-level. Let's do that over here as well. And then we have senior. Let's type senior over here. And then we have manager. Let's type manager. So now let's go back to our website. And here we can see we have the job tab. And here we have the experience level. So everything is working correctly. And the next thing we need to have is the location and also the salary range. So let's copy this div from here because we need to have 2 elements one next to the other. So let's copy the div and paste it down here. And in this div, let's copy input field. So these 2 are input fields. So let's copy an input field from here. So this is an input field. I'll just copy this. So let's copy the whole controller and let's paste it inside the div. Let's change the values inside here. So for the name, let's type location. And here for the HTML4, let's type location. And for the label, let's type location. And here also for the ID, let's type location. For the placeholder, let's add example, Mumbai. Let's type India over here. Right now, let's copy the same controller and paste it down here. And the next thing we need to have is the salary range. So let's go ahead and type salary for the name. And for the HTML4, let's type salary range. Here also, let's type salary range. And this is optional. So let's type optional over here. Here also for the ID, let's type salary range. And for the placeholder, let's go ahead and type example 100K to 150K. Now if we go back to our website, here we can see that we also have the location and the salary range. But now we need to have the description and also the application URL. Now here we already have a description, so let's update that. So this is the description. The name is correct. And for the HTML4, let's type job description. For the field label also let's type job description. And for the ID, let's type job description. And for the placeholder, let's add something. So let's type describe the role, responsibilities, qualifications, and benefits. And let's type rows 8. And here let's change this to 50 characters. And I will also add a description over here. So let's type provide a comprehensive description. I'll just copy this and paste it over here. Right now, the last thing we need to do is add the application URL. So I'll just copy this controller from here. And let's paste it down here. And for the name, let's type application URL. And for the HTML4, let's type application URL. Let's do the same over here, application URL. And for the placeholder, let's go ahead and type https example.com/apply. Let's also add a description over here. So let's copy this, and outside the input, let's type field description. Let's paste it over here. And with that, we have completed all the fields of our form. Now let's go back to our website and let's see whether it works. So here we can see everything is being displayed correctly. Let's also add a margin bottom for the form. So here, let's go to the card, and here for the card, let's type class name, margin bottom of 8. So this is how it looks. Right now, let's click on this publish job button. And here we can see we have the validation working correctly. Now for the mid-level, we have this error. So let's see what's the problem. Let's go back. And I think it's inside the validators. So here for the validators, we have small l. So we need to change this to capital L. Now this should solve the problem. So now we can see we don't have any problems. So let's click on publish job once again. So here we can see we have this validation. Let's add some details over here. And here we can see we need to add at least 50 characters. And we need to add a valid URL. So let's type https google.com. And let's open the console. And let's go ahead and click on publish. And now we can see we don't have any errors. And in the console, we have the data displayed over here. So with that, we have completed creating the post job form for our website. So that's basically it for this video. If you have any doubts, you can ask in the comments below. And if you like this video, please click on the like button and subscribe to this channel to get the latest video updates. Thanks a lot for watching. Have a nice day.